Welcome to this explainer. Today, we are diving into a truly unforgettable piece of contemporary fiction. We're talking about Akwakowe Emezi's critically acclaimed novel, The Death of Vivek Oji. We're going to unpack some incredibly profound themes today, things like identity, gender fluidity, and the trauma of societal erasure. It's a deeply emotional story, and it really pushes the boundaries of how we understand sexuality, and honestly, the lengths we'll go to protect the people we love. Listen to this opening line. They burned down the market the day Vivek Oji died. Wow. Talk about a devastating hook, right? It just instantly pulls you in and sets this heavy, almost ominous tone for the entire narrative. Right out of the gate, Emezi tells us exactly what the ultimate tragedy of the story is, but they simultaneously leave us with this burning question of how and why it happened.
Section 1. The end is the beginning.
So, structurally, this novel is famously nonlinear. It actually begins with the ultimate tragedy, Vivek's dead, naked body left on his parents' porch. It completely flips the script on what we expect from a genre like this. You know, a traditional mystery usually operates as a classic whodunit, focusing entirely on hunting down a killer. But Emezi, they use the illusion of a mystery to create what you might call a why-done-it. The real focus isn't so much on the exact circumstances of the death, but on how Vivek actually lived, loved, and fought for self-actualization in a world that, quite frankly, sought to erase them. Section 2. An illusion of a mystery. To really understand this illusion, we have to look at southeastern Nigeria, which is where Vivek's incredibly complex web of relationships unfolds. First up, we've got Vivek's parents, Kavita, who is an Indian immigrant, and Shika, her Nigerian husband. Then there's the extended family, specifically Vivek's cousin, Osita, who plays a massively important role here. And of course, we have Vivek's tight-knit group of friends, including Juju and Elizabeth. These friends are the children of the Niger Wives, which is a community of foreign-born women married to Nigerian men. This dynamic is absolutely vital. It highlights this sharp, almost jarring contrast between the conservative, traditional expectations of the older generation and the much more libertine, fluid, questioning attitudes of the youth. Section 3. Defying Gender and Sexuality. Now, to really unpack how Vivek navigates all of this, it's super helpful to look through the lens of philosopher Judith Butler's concept of performativity. Basically, the idea here is that gender isn't some fixed, innate thing. Instead, it's a series of behaviors and actions that we perform over time. And Vivek's existence actively resists that kind of rigid categorization. By simply being themselves, Vivek subverts the dominant cultural norms of exactly what a young person in Nigeria is supposed to be. We see this evolve as Vivek grows older. They start growing their hair way past their shoulders, wearing dresses and experimenting with makeup. They even tell their friends they're totally comfortable with both he and she pronouns, and eventually they embrace a fully feminine presentation under the name Nemdi. And the big takeaway here? These aren't just superficial aesthetic choices, not at all. They are a profound, radical assertion of true selfhood in an environment that pretty much demands strict conformity. And you know, this fluidity doesn't stop at just personal presentation. It extends deeply into Vivek's romantic relationships, too. The novel explores this whole world of blurred lines among Vivek's found family of friends. We're talking elements of polyamory, bisexuality, and these deep emotional bonds that just totally defy simple labels. Most notably, there's this incredibly complex, intimate, and ultimately tragic bond between Vivek and his cousin Osita. It's the kind of relationship that really challenges our understanding of love and boundaries. Section 4. The weight of society. But of course, this freedom among friends doesn't exist in a vacuum, right? The true antagonizing force in this novel is a concept Adrienne Rich calls compulsory heterosexuality. It's not a single villainous person threatening Vivek, it's the systemic, societal enforcement of heteronormative desire. It is the cultural and familial coercion telling people they absolutely must conform, or else they're going to face dire consequences. In a lot of ways, compulsory heterosexuality is the literal and metaphorical killer in Vivek's life. The realities depicted in the novel reflect some very genuine systemic challenges. We're looking at the criminalization of homosexuality, deep societal stigma against any non-conforming gender presentation, and the immense, terrifying threat of extended family ostracism. There's even a deeply painful scene where Vivek suffers a physical beating during a forced religious exorcism that's meant to, quote-unquote, cure them. This is the very real, very dangerous backdrop that frames every single choice Vivek makes. If nobody sees you, are you still there? I mean, just imagine walking through life knowing your family only loves a version of you that doesn't actually exist. This visceral question posed in the novel perfectly captures the profound trauma of invisibility that Vivek experiences every single day.
Section 5. The power of being seen.
But remember, fiction isn't just about tragedy, it's also about restoration. As the novel approaches its resolution, it reveals a completely heartbreaking truth. Vivek wasn't actually murdered in a hate crime, like we might initially suspect from the setup. What happened at the market riot was an accidental tragedy. Vivek, presenting fully as Nemdi that day, was spotted by a totally panicked Osita, and in Osita's frantic attempt to pull Nemdi to safety, she stumbled, struck her head on the sidewalk, and died. It was a tragic accident born entirely out of fear. In the aftermath, Osita is just terrified of the society they live in, and he completely panics. He strips the dress off Nemdi's body and leaves Vivek naked on Kavita's porch to hide the truth. Following this, Kavita spends almost the entire novel desperately interrogating Vivek's friends to figure out what happened. Finally, those friends make the incredibly brave choice to share a hidden photo album with Kavita. It's an album that reveals Vivek's true, fluid, beautiful self. And man, it is just a devastating realization for Kavita to understand that her child was forced to hide who they really were from her. But then, Kavita does something amazing. She engages in this beautiful, defiant act of love. She demands that her husband Chika update Vivek's headstone. The original marker effectively erased Vivek's truth, but Kavita has it officially changed to read, Vivek Namdi Ojana, beloved child. In death, Kavita officially recognizes, protects, and accepts her child's full identity. It's just such a powerful restoration of visibility. Section 6. Accolades and Impact. The sheer emotional resonance of this story is a huge reason why it just exploded in popularity, almost immediately catching the attention of the academic world. Academic journals like the ISRG Journal of Education, Humanities, and Literature have praised the novel as an essential decolonial intervention in contemporary African queer literature. It's widely celebrated for proving that queer identity isn't some Western import, but rather a deeply embedded human reality. And you know, this academic praise was totally matched by an incredible timeline of real-world mainstream impact. I mean, it was an instant New York Times bestseller right out of the gate in 2020. By 2021, it took home the Nomo Award for Best Novel and an Audie Award. And then in 2022, it was shortlisted for the highly prestigious International Dublin Literary Award. The critical acclaim across the entire literary world has just been massive. Part of why it resonates so deeply is how beautifully it blurs the lines between fiction and reality. The author Akwake Amezi is non-binary and trans, and their own lived experience so clearly translates into the prose, giving it this visceral, undeniable authenticity. Reviewers across the board describe the writing as both impossibly tender and utterly heartbreaking, largely because it just feels so incredibly real. The Guardian actually wrote a review of the book that offered this brilliant summary. Fiction is an antidote to invisibility. I love that. That is really the core takeaway here. Storytelling has this unique, unparalleled power to restore erased identities and to basically force us to see people exactly as they are. So, as we wrap up our explainer today, let's reflect on what this novel actually accomplishes. The Death of Vivek Oji brilliantly subverts the traditional murder mystery, completely turning our expectations inside out. It uses that very structure to expose the unseen violence of rigid societal expectations. Yet, amidst all of that heavy tragedy, it vibrantly celebrates the fluidity of identity, gender, and bisexuality. And above all else, it highlights the life-saving, transformative power of a found family. I'm going to leave you with this thought to chew on. If our societal structures dictate who is allowed to be seen, how can we, in our own everyday lives, ensure that everyone has the freedom to be fully visible? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I will see you next time.